Hello, everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order. It's 7:10 on Monday night, whatever today is, the 17th of November. Welcome to the Commission on Sustainability, Environmental Justice, and the Environment. And we've got a nice long agenda and lots of people in here. So what I thought we'd do, we usually go around the entire room and have everybody introduce themselves, and we can't hear half of your names. I think a lot of folks are going to be speaking tonight, so we're just going to have the commissioners up here at the table introduce themselves, do the roll call, and then when you're speaking, if you could introduce yourself, we'll get names that way. And before I start, we have two announcements. Why don't you go ahead?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to make one announcement. So the way that we do this for public comment is much looser. You're welcome to go up and speak when it's time to. That is where you'll be speaking. Please press to see the blue light and speak right into the microphone. Introduce yourself so that I have it for the record. Thank you so much. And that's really all I have to say, except for please, everyone tonight, speak into the mic when you have a comment so that we can record it. Thank you. And if Jordan can't hear you, he's going to call out and ask you to repeat yourself. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So roll call. Why don't we start up here?
Sorry. Hi, Clove Galilee, Office of Sustainability, City Managers.
Hi, I'm Shannon Perry. I'm the city's Chief Sustainability Officer. I am also in the Office of Sustainability and the Environment. And you may note that we are now in the City Manager's office.
Good evening, David Pettit, Commission member. I've been admonished to speak loudly and into the mic.
Well done, David.
That was amazing. Alex Tower, also Commissioner and Vice Chair. That's enough.
I'm Dean Kubani. I'm Chair of the Commission.
Susan Mearns, Commissioner.
Ashley Olson, Commissioner.
And Judy can introduce herself too.
Judy Abdo, not a commissioner,
All right.
but I started the commission.
Right. Okay. That's great. Thank you, everyone. So the first item we have is public input on non-agenda items. Do we have anybody who wants to provide public input on anything that's not on the agenda? All right. Nope. Oh, is it blue?
Look at that. Okay, hi, this is actually a non-agenda item that I wanted to bring to your attention. My name is Stephen Johnson. I'm the Chair of the Recreation and Parks Commission, also the liaison to the Field Sports Advisory Council, which is a subcommittee of the Recreation and Parks Commission. I tried to get this to y'all, but I didn't have an alias. So the Field Sports Advisory Council has written a letter because they met before Recreation and Parks, which is meeting on Thursday, calling everybody's attention to the City Council meeting of October 14th, where they had an agenda item that was initially whether or not to extend the exclusive negotiating agreement on the rehab of the Civic Auditorium. And you know, went one way or another, but during the conversation, the item, the substitute motion that came in, really kicked open the discussion wider than just the Civic Auditorium. It kicked it open to include consideration of redevelopment of the Belmar field and the Belmar, art installation around that, the parking lot that's above the SWIP, maybe moving Chain Reaction somewhere, things like that. And we really, the Field Sports Advisory Council really wanted to get it out there that in a city where we only have 2 city-owned soccer fields, like really, if we wanted to be honest, to lose the newest one, the one that has the longest lifespan, even if they were to put some kind of parking structure under it or something, to lose it for a few years or to lose it forever would have a drastic and devastating impact on all of the fields and all the field sports in the town, a domino effect that would, in my opinion, and I'm saying this to you guys tonight, would really impact the push towards sustainability, a push towards grass fields and stuff. Because if we don't have enough fields as it is, it's going to be really, really hard to convince people that we need grass fields instead of turf fields because the turf fields have much more playability. I know that's the topic of the later discussion, but I wanted to make sure that this got on your radar screen, that it's being discussed, getting rid of the newest soccer field in Santa Monica. And it also seems a shame to rip up something that's less than 5 years old. But that's another of the sustainability pitches. So I just want to share that. I'll try to send this letter to your alias and make sure everybody has a chance. But that was my non-agenda item comment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you can get the letter to Clove,
I'll get
she
an
can
email.
get it out to us. Any other public input on non-agenda items? Nope. Okay. So now we've got public input on agenda items. Typically, we lump all of these together and everybody gets up and speaks, but I think we got a lot of folks that want to speak on various items. So what I'm planning to do is do public input before each of the items as they come up, if that works for people. However, if there's anybody who needs to leave and they want to do their public input on an agenda item now, you can speak now or you can wait until the item comes up. Okay, that was easy. We have no special agenda items. We have our consent calendar, and the only items on the consent calendar are approval of our minutes from September 15th, 2025 and October 20th, 2025 regular meetings. All of the commissioners have those minutes in front of them. I had one correction to the October 20th minutes. It says that Olivia Walker was absent. Actually, Olivia was here and Ashley was absent. Okay, no worries.
Ashley was gone and Olivia was there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other than that, I didn't have any corrections and they looked good. And I will move approval of both sets of minutes. David seconds. All in favor? Aye. That unanimously passes. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 5, continued items. First one is the e-bike voucher program. Do we have any public input on the e-bike voucher program? Nope. Okay, Peter, take it away.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Get to watch me. I'm just going to keep it like this. Let's keep it easy. Everyone, my name is Peter Rockmore. I'm a sustainability analyst in the Office of Sustainability and the Environment. I'm here to give you a recap of our low-income e-bike voucher program. We finished a program over the summer, and we've been waiting to give a presentation on it, mostly because our amazing fellow who was on our team, Alyssa, we were hoping she would be here to give you a presentation. But she left us for grad school. She's off doing bigger and better things. So I'm here. You get me. I'm great. It's going to be fun. So we are really happy to announce that we completed our program and we created a final report on the income qualified e-bike voucher program. And real quick, a program recap, we provided $2,000 vouchers to low-income residents in Santa Monica that they could use at 3 participating bike shops, the Bike Center, Helen Cycles, and Bike Attack Electric. And they could redeem those vouchers for an e-bike, bicycle, or bike accessories. And this was motivated to help create equitable access to forms of transportation that weren't gasoline-powered cars. In our community. The program also included an open path study, which I'll talk about, which was an app that participants could use to track their trips so we could get some information on people's travel habits using their bikes and e-bikes. So looking back at the program timeline, back in April 2024, we opened an application and then began doing widespread community outreach. Over the next year or so, we had sort of rolling application, people could keep applying, and we had several lotteries where we drew about 20 to 30 people each lottery to award them an e-bike voucher. We gave out our last voucher back in June over the summer, and our program was funded from 2 sources. We had a federal grant from the Department of Energy through the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant Program, and then the Office of Sustainability and the Environment kicked in a good portion too to continue to fund the program once we used up the federal grant money. And here's some major highlights from the program. We think it was a huge success. We were able to give out 122 e-bike vouchers. This generated over $260,000 of sales at the local bike shops that participated. 70% of our participants, when polled after getting their bike and e-bike, reported decreasing their car usage, getting around Santa Monica. And then e-bikes and bikes replaced 30% of vehicle miles driven for trips under 3 miles. So those shorter trips, we saw people choosing to use their bike or their e-bike about 30% of the time. And then when we polled them, we said, what are the benefits of having a bike and e-bike? The majority of people said it was just fun. It's fun to use a bike to get around. They really love using the bike lanes in Santa Monica. And here's some information just looking at the folks who participated in the program. We saw a pretty wide age range from folks who are 19 years old up to 83 years old getting e-bike vouchers. 93% of people who participated are renters, and 67% of those participants in the program had reported, very low income. So we're really targeting that right population to help it decrease those financial barriers to having a bike or e-bike. And nearly half of people reported driving as their main form of transportation to commute to work or school prior to when they first got in the program, prior to getting their bike or e-bike. Okay, so here's a little bit about our NREL Open Path study. This image over here on the side is what the app looked like. Folks could have the app on their phone and it would passively track their trips, and then they could go in and log those trips and sort of tell us what mode of transportation did you use and where were you going? Was this for work? Was this for school, to the grocery store? So that way we could sort of gain some insight into how people are getting around. And we saw that, the majority of people, you can see here, up here, the shorter the trip taken, the fewer miles traveled, obviously. But we saw here the majority of trips are under 5 miles or under 3 miles. And then when you're looking at those shorter trips, how often did you replace your car with your bike or e-bike? We saw, as the trip distance went down, that replacement level went up. So it gave us some positive signs to show that, when we give access to bikes and e-bikes, people will use those methods of transportation to get around town within Santa Monica for those shorter trips. And then we surveyed our participants just to sort of get a feel for how they were using their bike and e-bike and how the program went for them. You can see here's the stats on decreasing their car usage. You can see we had significantly decreased and slightly decreased. That makes up that 70% of folks changing their habits. And then the benefits here, a lot of folks reference cost savings, improved health and fitness, the environment, but of course, enjoyment and fun won out. And then how often are you riding your bicycle? The majority of people are using their bike 3 to 5 times a week. And what's next? Since we completed the program, we're really sort of actively on the search for grant funding to continue the program or do new iterations of the program. And so we're really looking forward to that because the program was very popular with the people who participated, and the bike shops obviously loved it. And the community has sort of asked us to keep going, so we're looking for those opportunities. And we're also using the program and the lessons learned for developing a sort of direct service program to inform other programs. We've come in the past to present to you on our REACH program, where we're going to be providing low-income renters with energy-efficient appliances. And that experience running and developing the bike voucher program has really informed how we're developing that REACH program and how we're thinking about we can provide sustainability and environmental access as a service to residents in Santa Monica. So that was really quick, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Any questions from commissioners? Ashley.
When you saw the app and people tracking their trips, was that something they had to activate before they went on a trip, or did it ran in the background?
Yeah, so it's a really cool app. When they would enroll in the program, sign a QR code, download the app, and then it would just run in the background and tracking all their trips. I tested it out too. It's kind of fun. You can look at the
And
app.
then they would log in and have to tell you how or where, or if they took their bike or not,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of add additional information. And
Yeah.
how often were people doing that? Was there any data that was lost or not captured by adding in the additional, was I on my bike or in my car?
Yeah, so they would go in anytime. We did it over the course of a month, and we actually incentivized them. We basically said, for every week that you log or over 50% of your trips, we will give you an additional $50 voucher to keep going. And we actually saw that we had over 80% data collection rate. So people were really inputting a lot.
Thank you.
I was thinking the same thing. You asked a couple of the same questions, but how many total participants were in the tracking part of it?
We only had 15. So it's not, these numbers aren't scientific by any means, but it gives us some good insight, I think, into our
That's great. And you
participants.
did that, you tracked them for a month.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Well, excellent presentation. Thank you. And seems like a great program, and hope you find some funding for more.
We do too. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we're on to 5B, which is our Memorial Park redevelopment expansion project update. Is there any public input on this item? Not seeing any. No. Okay, Linda, take it away. But I think it's Clovis. What's our time limit for speakers?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. That's an awesome photo.
Thank Micah for that one. So good evening, everyone. I'm Linda Cogswell, Senior Design Manager. Okay. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Good evening. I'm Linda Cogswell, Senior Design Manager with Architecture Services. I'm here tonight to provide an update on the Memorial Park redevelopment and expansion project, which includes a sustainable water infrastructure project component. My goals tonight are to give you advance notice that we will be presenting a revised proposed plan to Council on January 27th. And to also gather any feedback you may have on the proposed revised plan to share with Council as part of their review process. Tonight, I'll provide a brief overview of the project background, walk you through the proposed revised plan, outline next steps, and conclude with time for questions and discussion. So starting with the project background, the City of Santa Monica's park system includes 32 parks encompassing more than 130 acres. Memorial Park was established in the 1950s, and it is geographically located in the center of the city, really the heart of the city. It plays a vital role in the overall park system. It serves as the city's primary park for baseball and softball, offers facilities for pickleball and tennis, and is home to Santa Monica's only public gymnasium and skate park. The park is also located next to the 17th Street SMC station on the Metro Expo line. The Memorial Park redevelopment and expansion project would combine the existing 10.3 acre Memorial Park with the 2.9 acre former Fisher lumber site to create a 13.2 acre newly renovated and expanded community park designed to meet increasing demand for recreational activities. The combined site is bounded by Colorado Avenue to the north, 16th Street to the east, Olympic Boulevard to the south, and 14th Street to the west. This project advances sustainability by replacing impermeable parking lots and aging facilities with increased capacity for park programs and amenities that promote health, wellness, and social connection, while also improving the park's ability to integrate natural systems and filter, capture, and infiltrate urban runoff, balancing recreational needs with native landscaping and sustainable water management practices. So this project has been in development for many years, close to 30. It started in 1997, but it really gained momentum in 2016 when the City Council designated it a high priority initiative as part of the LA Countywide Parks Needs Assessment. That same year, Santa Monica voters passed Measure V, providing up to $20 million for the project. So following that, a master planning process began, and the master plan was approved by council in 2019. Staff collaborated with Santa Monica College and the school district to develop an initial phase 1, estimated at $30 million, and funded by $20 million from SMC and $5 million each from the school district and the city. A design build contract was awarded in February of 2020, but I think we all know what happened. COVID emerged, the project was placed on hold. Many projects throughout the city were, and it was unclear when we would pick it up again. In September 2022, as we were emerging from the pandemic, council approved us restarting the project, however, with a reduced initial phase because we only had the $20 million from SMC available. In August of 2023, council authorized issuing an RFP for design and pre-construction services for the reduced phase 1 and new phase 2, along with negotiating an agreement with SMC to contribute up to $2.75 million of the $20 million for phase 1 design services. And then most recently, in August 2024, council approved awarding SWA Group a design contract covering phases 0, 1, and 2. So what we're calling phase 0 is the Sustainable Water Infrastructure Project. It's a critical component of the city's water sustainability strategy. This phase involves designing an underground stormwater capture and reuse and/or infiltration system that would harvest stormwater and urban runoff from approximately 135 acres of drainage area along the Pico-Kenter sub-watershed within city limits. So this slide illustrates the phases that are currently approved for design, potential phase 0, reduced phase 1, and phase 2 shown in the top row. The bottom row represents future phases 3 and 4, which are not part of the current design effort. In designing phases 0, 1, and 2, the design team worked from the approved master plan layout as a guiding framework, while also revisiting a set of additional items to be considered during schematic design. And these 15 items were identified by council in 2019 when they approved the master plan. These 15 items were also reaffirmed in August 2024 when we went to award the contract. And then the understanding is that we would bring a revised plan back to council for their approval before proceeding with final design. So these additional items reflect programmatic and dimensional considerations to be evaluated post-master plan approval, and certain scope elements may be refined to incorporate these items and based on insights gained during schematic design. And when I say the approved master plan would serve as a guiding framework for design, there's a master plan layout itself, but I think it's important to bring it back to the original objectives of the project, which are listed here. So they are to maximize fields with a focus on diamond sports, consider community programs, integrate the city's bike and ped action plans, integrate appropriate buffering along busy streets, and consider the park's relationship to the surrounding neighborhood and city context. So the schematic design process was initiated in spring of this year. The project team worked through alternatives in the summer and fall, and the schematic design will be wrapping up this winter when the revised plan is presented to council. The project team is also completing the EIR process in parallel with schematic design. So EIR scoping began about a year ago. The draft EIR was released in September. The public comment period closed on November 3rd. And we're just working now to respond to comments. And we are scheduled to bring forward the EIR to Council for their approval at the January 27th meeting alongside the proposed revised plan. So given rising costs and continued uncertainty, to ensure that the design process is aligned with realistic expectations for the work required, the estimated construction budget for phases 1 and 2 have been updated to $25 million and $15 million respectively. The estimated construction budget for phase 0 is between $20 and $25 million. So from this slide, you can see that we've secured some funding, including the $18 million from SMC, but that there is a funding shortfall for all phases of the project. To address the funding gap, we're actively exploring and pursuing grants for all phases of the project. We submitted applications over the past year. Unfortunately, one of them has been paused, but 3 of them are still actively in the process. And we would like to thank Vice Chair Tower for helping us by submitting letters of support. So this chart provides anticipated timelines for award recommendation, final approval, and funding availability, and they do line up with our design and construction timelines. Okay, so we'll jump into the proposed revised plan. Just note the draft watermark on the slide. So a lot of these are still works in progress that we're refining and finalizing for the council meeting, but we did want to share them with you to get some feedback. So I wanted to just start off with a high-level look at the revised plan in comparison to the original master plan that was approved. Just to reiterate, the revised plan only looked at phases 1 and 2. So phase 3 and 4, those are in the future. And what you're seeing are the adjustments that we've made within like the top 2/3 portion of the park. Big picture, you know, the revised plan keeps the 7 fields like the master plan. So that would provide 1 additional field from existing, and that was really important as part of the master plan process. It also maintains entrances, a new entrance at Colorado, and for the most part, it maintains the layout of the plan. Some changes. Field 5 was repositioned to create more usable space at the community hub center of the park and along the perimeters of the park. If you take a really close look, you can see actual dugouts and bullpens where the master plan did not show those. We also have added in a dog run. So the master plan did not include a dog run, but we were able to find some space to include a smaller dog run, but it's about half the size of what's existing. And then we also shifted the parking structure east to be adjacent to the community hub building. And this allowed us to maximize on-site parking, but it also provides us the opportunity to access the rooftop of the community hub. And that provides opportunities for more amenities for the community.
Where's the dog run on the map?
Number 3, off of 14th Street.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
So the tank is currently proposed under phase 1. The tank would have a maximum capacity of 3 million gallons for storage, capture, and reuse, and or infiltration. If constructed, phase 0 would provide an additional treatment and water supply element of the SWIP, expanding the treatment and water supply capacity, increasing locally produced water, and providing a drought-resilient water supply. If it were to happen that phase 1 was funded, but phase 0 and phase 2 were not funded, we would move forward with phase 1 and then look to incorporate Phase 0 as part of Phase 2. And so what you see on the slide are just a few options of where those locations could be. The design team also completed a preliminary assessment of the project's potential for meeting LEED, and it appears to meet prerequisites for site certification. So our goal for this project is gold, but we will be continuing the analysis during design development as we get further into design. For the community hub, we are unsure if the project would qualify for LEED because of its unique nature in that the community hub is now adjacent to the parking structure, and there are some considerations around it being a standalone. So our design team has advised us to reach out to the U.S. Green Building Council for a definitive answer, and so we'll be doing that. So going back to the revised plan, the following slides I'll touch on the major program areas. Essentially, there's 6 listed. So there's the combo fields, and we are proposing natural grass ball fields that will be watered with recycled water. We also have promenade and entry experiences at Colorado and 14th Street, really thinking about the mobility experience for pedestrians, bicyclists, those taking transit. The dog run, which I think a lot of people wanted to see in the revised plan. We have the Central Zone, which is made up of a new playground, the community hub building, and where future Field 5 will be, it is going to be an interim space. The master plan proposed a practice field. One of the considerations was to make it a little more flexible. So what we are proposing is an interim space that can serve as a practice field and can be flexible and be used for passive recreation, programming, pop-up events. There's the community hub adjacent to elevated pickleball and tennis courts. And then there are the streetscape and mobility improvements along 14th, Colorado, and 16th, which I think will really actually transform the edges of the park, and it will be exciting to see. And then just a quick note that one of the combo fields will encroach slightly into the city's right-of-way. So as part of this process and what we will be bringing to council is a recommendation to pursue a summary vacation so that we can encroach just slightly into the right-of-way. So for the promenade and entry experiences, this slide speaks to just the promenade along Colorado, but it's really throughout the site in terms of the hardscape and the softscapes, really thinking about permeability and native plantings, drought-tolerant plantings, and climate-appropriate species. Here's just a zoom in of the dog run. And it will be designed similar to the dog run that just opened next to Big Blue Bus's headquarters. So it's narrow, but it does provide sufficient space to at least allow people to bring their dogs and let them off leash. We have our central zone, so there will be a small playground. We have 2 different areas, one for age 2 to 5 and 5 to 2. We have not yet picked out the equipment, but we're thinking, tying it back into a ball-themed sports might be fun. So this will really get developed in design development. And then for that interim space, a practice field, but also taking opportunity to add some more greening. So there will be some planting buffers that will act as a place of rest when it's not, being used as a practice field or programmed. So we have on the other end near 14th Street, the elevated pickleball and tennis courts over parking. And you can see that it's now adjacent to the community hub. By shifting the parking further east, we have created an opportunity for some mural art that you can see from Colorado, and we think that will serve nicely to pull people into the park. And then as for sustainability, so the design team did point out opportunities for EV solar panels. So this slide shows potential solar panels at the surface parking lot. And then this slide shows potential solar panels at the pickleball and tennis courts. For our parking plan, there are 35 EV-capable spaces that are being proposed. And then if we zoom in, this shows that 18 of those 18 spaces will have EV charging stations installed. And then this gives you just a perspective view of what the community hub looks like, and then also some of the materials that we're thinking of. So moving into streetscape design and mobility improvements, the master plan for Colorado called for a shared use path within a certain width. And with that information, the design team, and that's in the lower image, they were able to accommodate the shared use path. But what we weren't able to do at the time is accommodate a double row of trees. And for this project, we really wanted to insert as many trees as we could within this park. And so we worked with Fire, so they would accommodate a 12.5-foot travel lane, or they were okay with that. And because of that, we were able to fit in a second row of trees. So for 14th Street, based on the master plan proposed reducing the parkway to 4 feet, and that would have required us to remove all of the magnolias along 14th Street. The design team took a close look, and they were able to preserve the existing trees along 14th Street within a 7-foot parkway, but still be able to have the plan accommodate an 8-foot wide sidewalk. And so that was really important for the plan to accommodate, pedestrians along 14th Street, the amount of people that we're expecting. And so that is the recommendation for 14th Street. And then for 16th Street, the master plan proposed converting all of the angled parking to parallel parking. And then in our studies, we found that we were actually able to save some of the angled parking without losing the goals of the project. And so we decided to keep some of the angled parking and maximize on-street parking where we could. So just quickly, these are the parking counts. And it's just showing that there's 212 existing parking spaces. The master plan had estimated 196, so a loss in parking. The revised plan with phases 1 and 2 would increase parking for some time until phase 3 happens, at which time we would lose some parking. So in the end, I think the parking counts closely matched the master plan, and we were able to accommodate the parking as well. Oh, sorry. For the tree assessment, the design team did an inventory of all the trees. So there are 96 trees within phases 1 and 2. 30 street trees and 66 park trees. There are 20 species, and a good number of the 96 trees are palm trees. So 24 of the 96 are palm trees, 72 are canopy trees. And we looked at the suitability for preservation. So working with our consultant and the urban forest team, The tree strategy for this project is to protect, in place, or relocate 14 trees. We would have to unfortunately remove 82 trees, and that's really just based on the layout of the fields. There's not a lot that we could have preserved, but what we were able to do is find areas where we could put new trees in, and so this revised plan is proposing 110 new trees. And based on our restitution policy, for the 82 trees that we're removing, we are required to replant 423. The strategy we've worked out is that we would plant as many as we can on site, and so 110 trees. And then the remaining balance, we would work with the urban forest team to identify locations within a quarter mile of Memorial Park, and then from there, citywide. So these are the proposed trees. I can go back to this slide if you want to know specifically the species. And then just for tree counts, so there's 96 existing. We would protect or relocate 14. We would plant 110 new trees, and that would bring us to a new total of 124 trees. So next steps, we're almost there. So our discussions with the college and the school district will be ongoing. In addition to grants, we're also working on partnerships. This month, our presentations to this commission, I presented to FSAC and the Urban Forest Task Force. I will be presenting to Rec and Parks Commission, and that's to gain input. The final EIR and the revised plan presentation will be brought forward to council on January 27th, and this is a change from a previous date. So we were previously scheduled for December 16th. We are now going January 27th. With council approval of the EIR and the revised plan, we would proceed with final design. We would begin to plan for construction in terms of programming impacts. And then we would also think about ongoing maintenance costs with implementation. In the spring, we are bringing back 60% plans, so that provides another opportunity for sharing our progress and getting input. We anticipate completing design and bidding the project summer and fall of 2026. And with funding in place, we would start construction winter of 2026. And we anticipate it taking about 2 years for all 3 phases. And the construction timeline will be adjusted as we get further into design and kind of know more about what we'll be doing. There's also a project website with updates and upcoming meetings. And that concludes my presentation. Sorry.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Got a lot of information
That was a
in a
lot.
short time. It was fantastic. And it was great to be walked through all that because I remember the early stages and how different the project was. And so it's good that you talked us through how it's been scaled back a bit and where it's going. Any questions, comments from Commissioners? Susan?
Thank you for your presentation. I had a few questions. One of them was with regard to the cost of the SWIP. Is that incorporated into any of the cost estimates that you've presented?
The construction budget, I think it was 20 to 25 million.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. So we have the construction budgets based on cost estimates, but as we continue with design, we'll be continuing to update those cost estimates and making sure that we're aligned in terms of funding and what we anticipate the cost to be.
Right, but does that also include the cost for constructing the SWIP? So that's included in the phase 0 cost?
Yes.
Right there.
Yes.
Okay. Do we know specifically the cost estimate attributable to the SWIP?
I think
The
that's what it
20
is,
to
20 to
25.
25 million.
That is the total cost for just the SWIP?
Yes.
Okay. And then there were or other locations that are being considered for the SWIP. And I'm assuming the priority is the first location. And so I'm assuming that priority location was specified by the water department, by Sonny and his crew.
So we're working with engineering on the location of the tank. And really, the priority was to include it as part of phase 1 so that it could be constructed with phase 1. And it's only if we move forward with phase 1 without the tank would we start to look at locations under phase 2.
So when would the SWIP be constructed? Would be constructed in phase 2?
Well, we hope the SWIP will be constructed with phase 1.
Okay. But the location is, from an engineering perspective, is there a best case location, or does it not matter where it's located?
It matters where it's located, I think, given the options that we have within the park. Whether it's within phase 1 or 2, it works either way because it's underneath the field, and the pipe would be going down, it's that promenade. So it's whether you go east or west.
So as long as it's under the big grass fields that are in the northern third,
Yes.
the specific location is immaterial.
Yes. I mean, I think it's also about access. So where it's positioned now, you can have access from the promenades, which makes sense. And then having it under the fields is just given the layout of the fields and the access paths. That's kind of where we landed with the location of the tank.
Okay. And then I noticed with your trees,
Yes.
so most of the species are non-natives now, but you're replacing them with non-natives. You have a majority non-native replacement, which I thought was different than urban forestry's mission.
It looks like most of those are California natives, it says on the bottom.
If you look at the tree strategy, where it lists,
Oh, this is the existing. This is an inventory of existing trees.
so the third column is headed new proposed within each box.
Yes.
So you have new proposed along Colorado Avenue Phase 1, 14 native, 26 non-native, 0 palms.
I'll have to check with the non-natives, but we're also following the species that are specified in the urban, well, we have Matthew here, but in the urban forest master plan, there are species designated for each street segment. And for Colorado, it's carrotwood. And so that is what we're. Oh.
Oh, this is exciting. On the button, the blue light's on. Can you hear me? I think so. I've got a loud voice. Typically, we are trying to use as many natives as possible. Sorry, Matthew Wells, public landscape manager. I used to be the urban forester for the city. Where we've struggled, though, is your average tree well or cutout on a street is not very suitable for native species. So the reason we have to sometimes use trees from like Australia, or we use quite a few trees from Australia. We use a lot of eucalyptus trees, obviously, but also things from sort of Africa and other places like that, is because we do have difficult conditions. A lot of our tree wells in the streets do not have irrigation. They have what we call limited soil volume. So underneath the sidewalk is heavily compacted soils. Unfortunately, a lot of our natives do very well in like parkland, right? And they do well in riverbeds and they do well in natural areas. But if we put them into some building rubble on the side of Wiltshire Boulevard in a small 4x4 hole, they don't do too well. So that's why we're kind of limited. But do we want to use more natives? Absolutely. And you're absolutely correct. That is part of our tree strategy too. So that's why, for example, on Olympic Boulevard, which is right next to it, we're trying to get rid of the coral trees, which are South African and they're horrible and they fall apart and we have to prune them the whole time. And they provide very little to us sort of environmentally in terms of natural habitat. And we're trying to turn Olympic into a native corridor. So we're putting in there the oaks, the California sycamores. We're trying to put in some Torrey pines in there. We've just done that microforest, which is like an experiment we did with the Malibu Foundation. So we're trying to use the natives where they're going to survive and where they're going to do well. We can't rely on people to irrigate street trees, unfortunately, and that's a big problem for us. Plus, and also the soil conditions are not that great. Now, could we use, sorry, I know I'm going on a bit, but could we use soil cells, what we call soil cells and things like that to put native soil underneath sidewalks? Yes, but it would just be very, very expensive. Any other questions about trees?
So what specific species of non-natives are being considered for the Memorial Park development?
I think it's carrotwoods, right, which we already have.
Well, we have carrotwood along Colorado, and then along 4th, we'll have the existing magnolias, and then planting paperbark trees. And then I think the other ones are silver leaf oak. And I see some of those along the promenade. So that's where you see the one. And I believe that's because of site constraints, because we're trying to have trees on either side of the promenade. And so that's the other non-native.
Are you open to feedback about these species, or?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like the Melaleuca is just terrible.
What do you think?
And it may grow well, but they're incredibly messy and just really hard to keep clean up, underneath. Drop a lot of leaf litter and they get moldy and gross because if they don't get trimmed regularly, they get very clumpy and they shed a lot.
I see them as a good street tree for us, but I understand. I hear what you're saying. I mean, we're always open to changes, and people can come to the Urban Forest Task Force and make those changes, or make a recommendation to us, and I can take it back to the task force. We're trying to plant trees which people like, obviously. The good news about it, if it's planted next to a park, obviously it's park maintenance stuff, mind you, they're not happy about it. But we will have to clean up the mess. The good news is the city manager's just given us back a lot more pruning funds than we've had for a while, so we'll have more ability to maintain the trees. But I understand, when they're in flower, they can be messy. People like the bark, they always look nice. They do very well. But I understand your point of view. And so if you want to make that recommendation to relook at the species, we're happy to do that.
So the species were selected based on?
Street trees were selected based on what's already in the Urban Forest Master Plan. The actual what's going into the park, currently we don't have species selections in our master plan, Urban Forest Master Plan. We're looking at adding that. But the species, I think our main direction to the designers was to use natives where suitable, and that will always be our case. Okay. Obviously, we don't, even if we're using natives, though, we don't want to plant like all oaks or all one thing.
Sure.
We're trying to plant native species. We're also trying to plant stuff that's looking at drought and looking at us getting warmer here, right? We want to think about what's going to happen in the future. And we also want to still make sure that we've got diversity, so we're not having the same problems we have like with the coral trees at the moment, which we seem to be losing a lot of coral trees, a lot of ficus trees at the moment. So we don't want monocultures. Even though we like them, we like the way they look in Santa Monica on the streets, we do need to diversify a little bit.
Okay. And then I had one other question with regard to the trees. So it looks like we're going to end up with more trees than we currently have.
Correct.
So not quite 20 more trees, maybe 15 more trees.
28?
28 more trees.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go.
Sorry, I'm monopolizing the questions. But I had a question with regard to parking, because in one of your charts with regard to parking, it looked like we were ending up with more parking than currently we have.
Yes.
Okay, I thought we were trying to do less parking.
So currently there's 212 total. So that's made up of 107 on-site and 105 off-site. So street parking. The master plan, because we are putting in a shared use path along Colorado, in order to do that, all of the metered parking along Colorado is being removed. 14th Street, given the new driveways for the emergency access path, so there are a couple of trees that we will need to remove as well. And then for 16th Street, we are expanding the park slightly into 16th. And the plan was always to convert them all to parallel parking, but we're actually proposing that we keep some of them angled so that we could keep more parking. So what the revised plan does is it increases the number of on-site park dedicated parking space for park users, and then the off-site spaces decrease. So your total goes up slightly from existing, but again, when phase 3 happens, we will lose about 20 spaces on 16th Street. And so it's close to what's existing, but I will say that the improvements that we're making to Memorial Park, I feel will draw a lot more people, and people will hopefully take transit, bike, or walk, because we're making all these amazing improvements at the edges. But there will be people that will also need to take their gear with them, drop off their kids, for other reasons. And so that was the thinking behind the parking.
And then will the parking be constructed using permeable materials? Or are we just talking about aggregate base with concrete or asphalt?
So the parking, I don't believe will be permeable. It'll be asphalt. But what the plan is doing is it's stacking the pickleball and tennis courts over the parking. So in some ways, we're reducing the impermeability of the site. And then we're also, and it's kind of separate from it, but we're trying to provide shade where we can. So I think the parking itself, we're limited in terms of what we can do. But where we can, we are implementing permeable surfaces and landscaping.
Thank you very much.
I assume you're also capturing the water that is on the impermeable and it's going
Yes.
into the
Oh,
SWIP.
yes.
So
That's
basically,
a good point. Yes.
all the impermeable stuff is going to be running off into the street. It's going to be running off into the SWIP.
Into the tank. Thank you.
I have another
you.
question about the trees.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there are 423 trees that are required as a response to the removal of those trees. And there's a lot of trees that aren't going to be placed there. And you did say that you'll have to put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
My question is, what's the timing on that? How much time do you have, or are you allowed to just stick it in a debt category and deal with it sometime in the distant future?
From what I understand, there's more than enough tree walls
Yeah.
that need trees. And
Yeah, so there's not going to be something that's just going to live out there and then hopefully we're going to forget that people even remember and then we drift off. We've got about 1,000 vacancies out in our streets. We haven't actually got an inventory of our vacancies in our parks at the moment. We'll also remove about 400 trees every year from our streets in Santa Monica, maybe 350, 400 trees. So we've got plenty of trees to replace. And we'll be using, we'll be trying to get the funds. We've got to work out internally how that's going to work. But it is our intention to plant those trees back. We obviously want to plant them back in the locality of where we lost the trees. But after that, there's only so much vacancies in that area, then we'll have to expand that to citywide. But if people wonder why that's so high, it's because we look at the species, we look at the size of the trees and the condition of the trees. So that's why we don't have 1 for 1 or 1 for 2 or 1 for 3 or whatever. Some trees, some big trees are worth, maybe 10, 20 new trees. And that's what we're looking at, those 36 spots.
Are we talking in terms of carbon, or how are you?
It's really it's It's not something that we created. It's created by the Council of Tree and Landscape Appraisers. It's just one of the systems.
Got
It's
it.
called the trunk formula replacement. So it's more about canopy cover than so much about carbon. But most of those things are all based along the same lines.
Okay, thank you. And it doesn't have to be built into the budget, correct? Or it does? The 400,
Yes, I think so.
it does?
That's what
Okay.
I would say.
All right, thank you. Thank you both.
Great. David?
Excuse me. Thanks for your presentation. I have two questions. One is, excuse me, given the number of phases and the uncertainty about funding, is there a possibility that we would go through some period of time with less field space than we have right now?
Let's see. I have some backup slides. So this shows if only phase one were to move forward. And so the Memorial Main fields, almost half of it would still be there. So I would say with phase one, we would still maintain the 6 fields. So we wouldn't get to 7 yet. And then with phase two, we would have, again, 4 fields. It's not until phase 3 that we would get the 7 fields.
And remind me, formally speaking, what do we have now, right now, today?
6. So right now we have, I don't know if I have a good, it's basically the bottom 2 youth, and
Right.
there's the big green with 4 fields in one.
Right, so I'm not sure how to read the map that you're showing us now.
Okay.
The fields that are sort of on the right and on the bottom, that are kind of a very light, I don't know, is that gray,
Yes.
gray blue? Would those go away?
No, so those are existing, and they would stay with, if only phase one were constructed.
Okay, all right, that was my question. Secondly, in terms, you showed us a list of potential grant applications for funding. If, suppose that the city approves the, going forward on the airport park, is there a situation where Memorial Park and the airport park would be competing for the same pool of grant money?
I suppose in theory, I mean, not right now. Are you asking like right now if it's?
Well, no, because the city hasn't moved forward on,
Right. I think in terms of submitting grant applications, we would prioritize how we would want to apply for grants. So I don't think we would submit 2 projects that would compete with each other. And this is talking about like in the future. So I think it's possible, but I don't see it happening because I don't think we would submit 2 applications that would compete against
And-
each other.
who makes the call about how to prioritize those applications?
I mean, I think a lot of time, I see my manager smiling at me.
Her?
I mean, so I've been with the city since 2011. So I think it involves city staff input. It involves Rec and Parks Commission. It involves community input. And then that all feeds into like, what are we hearing that the community wants? And it's a struggle because there isn't unlimited funding. And so
Right.
we have to pick, but it doesn't just, I would say it's very much grounded in what we feel the community wants, and that's how it gets prioritized.
So at the end of the day, the last question.
Yeah.
Is that the city manager's call? Is it the council's call?
Sometimes we do have to go to city council to apply for grants. Oftentimes it's bringing forward a recommendation, like, can we have your approval to apply for this grant for this project? I also will say we do consider the competitiveness of the project given the grant's guidelines. So sometimes it's just the grant and what they're looking for, and this is a project that fits that best. So there's a lot of variables. But I think it really starts with staff and then what we hear. And then sometimes we need to bring that to council to be able to apply for a grant. And then we also always like keep in touch with our commissions and boards as well.
Thank you.
Ashley?
I'll try to be quick. Thank you so much for being so patient with us. Back to the funding, when you had the grants applied for, if you could go to that slide, please. And I see that there was the Measure W application for 11.75. So I'm assuming that's been maximized. That application is maximized the most amount of funds that can come out of Measure W. And I know Measure V for the city is all allocated, all the money's been allocated. So are you assuming that that's a slam dunk grant, or is that something that you don't know? And how will that impact phase 1 versus phase 2? And then if this only moves forward for phase 1, and then 2 is kind of put into, I don't know, the graveyard, what happens to the water reservoir for SWIP?
So there are a lot of pieces to moving this project forward, and council did approve us go ahead and get started on design while you figure out the funding piece. We are not sure how these grant applications will go. I think I've heard that Measure W is going well, but it's hard to say until you get even on this chart, I made sure to include when we will be awarded the recommendation, but then there's a period where it's not final yet. So I think for us, it's a matter of pursuing the grants, seeing what we are able to get awarded, prioritizing phase 0. I think we feel pretty good about phase 0 and prioritizing phase 1, and then hoping that phase 0 also happens so that both can happen at the same time.
And phase 0 is 25 million? Is that correct?
It was between 20 and 25.
Okay, and it says funding secured 10 million. So is that 11.75 in the funding shortfall, or is that assuming
So that would help to fill the funding gap.
Okay, so that's you're not assuming that you're getting the grant and the 10 million secured.
Yeah, that's separate.
Awesome. And then what's the total for the whole thing, every phase with and 0 through 3? What's the total cost?
So we did have that number back in 2020.
Okay.
I think now we're just in a place where we do not have a timeline or a plan yet for phases 3 and 4, and so we don't have an estimate for all phases.
So 0 through 3 or 0 through 2 roughly is 30
between 60 to 65.
Okay, so that's roughly, and then not including phase 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And phase 4.
And phase 4. Okay. So, and then did you mention something about the metro? Or a metro stop or bus stop being added?
So it's currently next to a metro stop. It's also, so what this project will do is it's going to provide new access at Colorado, where currently it's just fenced. So better permeability from Metro. There's also a cycle track on 17th and bike lanes on 14th. And so this project would construct a shared use path to kind of continue the bike connection further west. And so I think in thinking in terms of sustainability and access and connectivity, this project stays really true to the PED action plan and the bike action plan. And so we're hoping to be able to do all of it. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great. And I think all of my questions have been answered. So thank you so much, Linda, for a great presentation and filling us all in.
Do you need?
I don't need, but if you would like to take a motion to support the plan, or if you would later like to submit a letter when we go to council, all of those things would be great.
Yeah, I think we can submit a letter
Okay.
before you go to council in January. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Thank you. Okay. So only one item to go. We ought to be out of here pretty quick. Our next item is 5C, which is a staff update on natural grass and artificial turf for discussion. Do we have any public comment? I think we have quite a bit of public comment. So we'll have 3 minutes of public comments. And I told Tricia that folks can donate their time to other people if they want to speak longer.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
That's fine. I just would like you to say your name before you speak,
course.
so I have it for the record. Thank you.
Can we also, just in terms of time management, if you plan to speak on this item, will you raise your hand now? Great, thank you.
All right.
Tricia Crane, I'm the chair of Northeast Neighbors. You have received my comment in a letter, so I am donating my 3 minutes to Diane Wolke, who's the next speaker.
Good evening, Diane Wolke. I'm on the board of directors for Safe Healthy Plainfields. I did submit written comments that I'm hoping people have had a chance to look at.
Yes.
Good. Everyone received that. First of all, I want to mention that in regards to the historic Belmar Park, it falls within the California Coastal Commission permit zone, and the California Coastal Commission has not allowed synthetic turf since December of 2023, when we brought forward a sign-on letter that pointed out the issues with it. They agreed with us, and they decided to condition the permit for UC Santa Barbara baseball stadium based on lack of sustainability for plastic, as well as the microplastics and concern of contamination with the runoff. The LA City Council file has had over 60 organizations sign on for a ban on synthetic turf, including organizations that are well known to you here, Heal the Bay and Five Gyres. This is an appropriate night to point out the toxic runoff issue, given the rain we're having. For every acre of plastic turf, which is considered impermeable by California and the US EPA, you have, for every 1 acre of plastic, 27,000 gallons of toxic runoff for every 1 inch of rain. I did this calculation many months ago. I think it was back in March or April when I submitted comments on both Memorial Park as well as the playground. Synthetic turf is a wildfire risk, and the industry is fighting hard to get it included in Zone 0, and we're pushing back hard because it is combustible. It is not flame or ember resistant. You need to be acutely aware of that. The only new technology that comes with synthetic turf is additional chemicals of concern, including flame retardants, UV inhibitors, color pigments. UC Davis is going to be looking into synthetic turf because they have found hexavalent chromium as well as silver nanoparticles in the LA fire zones. And these are chemicals that are used in synthetic turf. That chromium-3 is a color pigment that under high heat can convert to hexavalent chromium, which is chromium-6. And there is a manufacturer largely used for landscape turf that does include silver technology as an antimicrobial agent. So we are submitting samples to them. They're wrapping up research now, and then they're going to turn to the synthetic turf issue. It's also under the regulatory process by California Department of Toxic Substance Control, as are microplastics as a chemical of concern. As far as human health goes, when are we going to be concerned about our kids? All of the chemicals that come off of these fields, PFAS is just one of them. And in fact, the manufacturer, the product that's being promulgated by the Board of Education has been tested, and we have those results. It was sent to 3 different labs, 3 different tests, and I will tell you they're cited in the letter that I submitted. One of the tests, total organic fluorine, came back at 53 parts per million, which is 53 million parts per trillion. What's the safe level of PFAS? You all know, it's 0, right? You already have PFAS in your water. How much more do you want? Environmentally, loss of biodiversity is a huge issue, especially when we're losing 350 to 400 trees a year. Climate change, of course, is a huge issue when we're talking about plastic surfacing. The plastic industry contributes 4 times the greenhouse gases when compared to the aviation industry. You know that. You've seen what the heat islands look like in this city. Of course, this product is not recyclable. Absolutely not. And in fact, we know that the manufacturer for what the Board of Education wants, their so-called recycling plant in the high desert has been closed down. They are now saying across the country that they'll take anybody's turf, they'll ship it to Louisiana, where they'll process it, and then they'll send it back to Texas, where they'll incinerate it. Who's going to pay for that? The taxpayers? You're talking 200 rolls, and each flatbed truck can hold 18 rolls. We're going to truck that to Louisiana, and then we're going to truck it back to Texas to have it incinerated? We've actually talked to the Department of Environmental Quality, we've written to them, and we've reviewed their online records. There is no recycling going on, not only in Louisiana or in California, but anywhere. This is not a recyclable product, it's a mixed plastic. Tomorrow, LAUSD is voting on a resolution to transition away from synthetic turf. Huge, the 2nd largest school district in the country. Exactly. Show up, speak up. I mentioned the testing results. We're also submitting additional product to be tested here on the West Coast. The other 3 tests that I mentioned were done on the East Coast. We're doing different tests, and they'll be done by 2 different labs. We're confident they're going to come back positive, just like the first 3 tests did. Somebody mentioned lead. There are no longer lead points available for synthetic turf. Let's see here. Also, I'm glad that there's going to be a storage tank for water for Memorial Park. Synthetic turf requires potable water because reclaimed water is too high in salt content. So, again, the manufacturer that the Board of Education is pushing for, they had the nerve on a podcast recently that I was involved in to say that if only the city had installed more of their product, the reservoirs would have been full at the time of the LA fires. That's pretty audacious, okay? We need to be concerned about our children's health. Another thing I wanted to point out is in addition to the numerous non-communicable diseases and cancers that can come from these chemicals in these products, one of the big things is we're compromising our future generations. It's predicted right now that by 2040, people will not be able to conceive independently because of the decrease in fertility rates. So we're condemning our children and their children to assisted insemination and artificial insemination and other techniques to be able to procreate. So not only are we kicking the can down the road to them by using synthetic turf, we're compromising their health, we're compromising the environment we're going to leave for them to clean up the mess. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Otherwise, you've got some pretty extensive information, I think, that was submitted.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. All right. Next up, whoever wants to go.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Vandenberg, and I'm the chair of the Wilshire, Montana Neighborhood Coalition, also known as Wilmont. I'm speaking only from my own knowledge and experiences. Last Tuesday, I attended the screening of the documentary called Plastic People. It's a 2024 documentary film, and it was shown by Sustainable Works at Lemley and sponsored by the city of Santa Monica. I was dumbstruck that the film is already showing and outlining that we have microplastics not only in our body, in our brain, and in our blood. I would think that the viewing of this film is enough to make anyone think it is not a good idea to put plastic turf anywhere in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever's ready, come on up.
I hadn't composed my script yet, but I'm Benjamin Kay. I serve on the city's Clean Beaches Committee for the city of Santa Monica, and I got to speak on that Plastics People panel, and it was a good panel. And one of the things that came up was this idea of the precautionary principle, which is often exercised in other countries, but not so much in the United States, which is if we know that there are deleterious chemicals that are put in products, right? And we know it negatively affects our health, especially those of children. We should take precaution in exposing ourselves to those products. But science has been very clear that we do not have an established cause and effect relationship between the microplastics and crumb rubber chemicals and the PFAS, endocrine disrupting chemicals, and cancer. And we haven't made that definitive connection. And this is where the precautionary principle says, well, if those chemicals exist in the product, then maybe we should not use those products, and maybe we should use natural alternatives. And so I think that we are kind of paralleling in history right now with all the plastics and the experimentation with plastics in a myriad of packaging. We're paralleling what happened with the CFCs in our aerosols back in the 60s and 70s. We're paralleling the DDT story, and we know where a lot of that DDT ended up and some of the ramifications of that. And we didn't listen and follow the precautionary principle in these very historical cases. And we now are dealing with Superfund sites along Palos Verdes and extending beyond there now into the area between here and Catalina with DDT, just as an example. So we tend to be reactionary rather than preventative. And I think with all the evidence starting to mount and lots of scientific research that I'm starting to, I'm privy to because that's what I do, I think it's time where we have to draw the line. I played 4 months ago and twisted my ankle on a synthetic turf field at Crossroads. It was a really weird injury, and I'm still wondering how I hurt myself so badly and couldn't play for 3 months. I did play, by the way, I'm an avid soccer player. I played 10 years in the LA Premier League, and I've played on a lot of artificial turf, and I've suffered several injuries. And we also have at Samo High artificial turf, and I work for the school district, and I've talked to the coach, and he said that there's a lot of female soccer players who are getting injured with ACL injuries that just don't really add up to what we've seen historically on natural fields. So yesterday I came home from playing at Crossroads again, back playing again, thankfully, and I tracked in, looked at the floor, and there are blades of synthetic turf and crumb rubber all over the floor in the living room. And my son came home hours later from playing at a turf too, empties his shoes out, and dad and mom are having to vacuum up hordes of this microplastic, which we know has bad chemicals in it. I'm kind of sick of it. The Democratic Club last week, also it should be known, voted almost unanimously, but 96% of the Democratic Club members voted that they want natural grass turfs back in Santa Monica. Now, we can't seem to convince the school district of what the right measure to take is, but I'm glad to see that the Santa Monica Democratic Club took action and voted 96% to, again, not in a way that's going to be binding for the city, but as an endorsement for safer alternatives. I keep hearing this argument against putting real turf in, that it's not durable enough, and the playability is not there yet. And so with the playability arguments, like we need playable turfs because otherwise our kids are going to sit home and be on their iPhones and suffer mental health. Well, that is also a parent issue. We also need to get our kids out and away from the phones and limit our screen times if that's what they're going to do at home, right? That's parenting too. But I understand the playability. We do need to get out and exercise. But do we have to, if we can't play on a field? What was I doing back in my day? I played at Pali High School, and Pali had fields. I played at Paul Revere. There's still kind of wait, I was still playing, even in dirt pits. And I never suffered the injuries that I'm suffering nowadays. Maybe it's my age. Okay. But I'd like to think that this mental health argument, right, of not having fields to play on, we can still run outside, right? We can still do things that are good for our mental health without having an artificial turf fields. I mean, my generation did it. I know there's lots more people in the world now, but guess what? I'd rather have a mental health issue than have cancer, especially with my 2 kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Gutierrez. I'm the chair of the Santa Monica Community Gardens Program Advisory Council. I'm also somebody who sat around this table as a liaison to the sustainability, then the task force on the environment back in 2010, 11, and 12, before we established with several of you as members the Sustainability Rights Ordinance. That's the capstone of the integrity you all have worked very hard on to maintain the leadership, not just locally, but internationally. I helped organize, as you know, with several of you, the community. I've been interviewed across the world for that quality of work. So one of the things I don't want us to forget is that the precautionary principle that Bennett alludes to is already in our sustainability plan, which we uplifted to codify in the Sustainability Rights Ordinance. So first of all, artificial turf not only contradicts and contravenes everything we've been working on, it can subject us to city liability. And we know we don't want to do that, notwithstanding the millions of dollars we're already dealing with for other liability issues. But more important, as exemplars of not just protecting the environmental health and the habitat health, but the understanding of our interdependence of humanity with our ecology. Ironically, artificial turf is already banned in Santa Monica in the sense of cash for grass, no artificial turf, and we concisely lay out in the program guidelines why not, including all the things you've already heard about the biodiversity loss, soil sterilization, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't want us to forget we are modeling for the young people. This is a tough call because of the playability we think we would be contending with. But playability is weighted against everything else we've heard tonight and over the many other months of discussion in various commissions and gatherings, is ironically not healthy playability. And the very things that we have established, not only to protect the environment and human health, but to benefit, not any of those are available with the artificial turf. It's a double whammy. It not only harms us, as you've already heard, potentially, it prevents the very ecosystem services we need from becoming real. From clean air, clean water, SWIP that we're hopefully going to put in Memorial Park, it could be prevented if at other places we have the kinds of artificial turf possibilities we now see. So I am thrilled to be somebody who's working with this commission and everyone else in this city to understand our history. It's not to be taken for granted. We are put at a critical time of climate change, and for our CAP and our new parks vision, as you well know, to have city as habitat is uplifted. Finally, as a Community Gardens Advisory Council, we did vote in July, not only to support that parks vision, but to call out the need for a ban on public property locally in Santa Monica of artificial turf. I hope this commission stands with that highest quality of work. However difficult this question is, it's a good test for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy?
I don't think this needs a lot of discussion. It's obvious. Somebody should just make a motion and it should be over.
Thank you. Do we have other public input? Come on up.
Hi, thank you again. Stephen Johnson, Chair of the Recreation and Parks Commission. We had this discussion in September. We had it at the Field Sports Advisory Council meeting. We had it in chambers with the Recreation and Parks Commission meeting. We had Diane present. We've had a lot of comment. We've had a lot of feedback from the sports community and from the school district also. Where we arrived with field sports, where we arrived with Recreation and Parks, is actually the same place we arrived with the Democratic Club resolution, which is what I think is going to be explained as the city's proposed policy. No net new artificial turf, no conversions, for instance. So if it's grass, it stays grass. In the city of Santa Monica, we have 13 baseball and softball fields. One really important part of the Memorial Park plan, early on, there was a discussion of making those combo fields artificial turf, and that, through communication and conversation, has gone away, right? The SWIP helps a lot, recycled water helps a lot. All of that is super important, and as of right now, there's no plan to take what's a grass field today and turn it into an artificial turf field tomorrow, and that's all of our baseball and softball fields. Now, those are low-impact sports. Low-impact sports means 3 people stand in the outfield for an hour, and they just kind of stand there. Yeah. Whereas a high impact sport on, maybe, the same amount of square footage, you've got 22 kids, 30 if they're playing rugby, 22 playing soccer, running around constantly on the whole field all the time. So the biggest difference is the city of Santa Monica, and I think we should also differentiate what a lot of this is about. A lot of this is about the school district. The city of Santa Monica has just 2 artificial turf fields. They're both rectangle soccer fields. They're full-size. Airport Park, put in 2007, and Belmar Park, which is very recent, just 2019. Okay, and Belmar is relatively new. But were we to take those away now, we would just dramatically cut into our field availability and playability. And as was discussed, this is a big deal, right? This is where you're going to get the soccer parents and the lacrosse parents and the adult soccer players and the rugby and the football and all this stuff coming out. The plan, which I think is very common sense, that we have signed off on in field sports, in rec and parks, in the Dem Club, which is no net new fields. And that just means that what we've got, we hold on to for now. And on such a day that everybody in this room really rallies hard and gets that great park built, gets us those dozen grass soccer fields or whatever, that's the day that it'll completely undercut the argument for retaining these artificial turf fields. Again, only 2 in the city of Santa Monica. The school district has its own arguments. I'm not going to make those at length, but I would say that due to our joint use agreement, fields at Jams, Lincoln, Samuel High are also critical to our playability and availability for, soccer, rugby, lacrosse, you name it. They have their own arguments to make. I believe today they're releasing their report that you probably haven't seen yet, but I got word that it's coming out, the report that the school district has commissioned. But I would say that if you are to take some kind of action, some kind of a proposal, some policy you want to say, I'm sure you'll go whichever way you go. But please, if you're saying no turf at all, please include in every single statement, every word you talk to about this, anybody, we can't do that without more fields. The grass fields, absolutely. A dozen grass fields would probably get us there. We look at Irvine, where Oliver came from, 24 fields. They still have 6 artificial turf fields at Irvine's Great Park. You go to Del Mar, it's a private soccer complex, 20 amazing, beautiful grass fields, but that's about a $5 million, $6 million a year business. They don't give them to just anybody. They charge $50 parking. It's very expensive to maintain quality grass fields. The city does not have a record of doing that for soccer. The school district does not have a record of doing that for their playing fields. So you're going to get a lot of skepticism about these grass fields unless everybody in here fights for the funding, the maintenance, the resources that will give us the grass fields that then obviate the need for artificial turf. So that's what I've got. But if you have any questions about the democratic resolution, I was on that committee. If you have questions about how the Rec and Parks, what we're hearing from all the sports clubs, happy to talk about it as well. So with that.
Great.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I want to make sure I understand your recommendation about Belmar and the airport, the soccer fields.
Yeah.
Are you saying leave them alone until either they end their useful life or they're superfluous because we have new grass fields?
Yeah, Belmar's pretty new,
Yeah.
and in the grand scheme of things. I'll also mention, we talked about the playing. So I played rugby in Southern California for 30 years. Rugby is the hardest sport to play on artificial turf. But I've broken my leg at Penmar on that dirt field. It's just crappy grass or whatever. And I've also had concussions on both grass and not grass. So, I mean, like you said, it just depends on the person.
Yeah. That's your fault for playing rugby. Yeah.
But
Well, I played football on blacktop when I was a kid. That explains a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly.
Also, yeah.
So there. But
That's
all
what
that
there
to
was.
say is, poorly maintained fields are poorly maintained fields.
Yeah.
An artificial turf field at the end of its useful life is pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Penmar Park, Westchester Park, Daniel Webster Middle School, the grass fields that are on the west side of LA, if they're not being privately maintained by some rich soccer club, they're crap.
Yeah.
I'd much rather play on artificial turf any day of the week, unless they're. So everybody, every soccer kid, every baseball player, every rugby player, yeah, we all want perfect grass, but I don't think very many people have a sense that that's going to happen. So the recommendation in those three things that I've been involved with is, grass stays grass, turf stays turf, and then on some happy day, when we've got fields to replace them, then let's make sure, let's put it in writing. The great park, nothing but grass fields, absolutely.
Let me just follow up with one thing. What's the expected useful life of a facility like Penmar, the artificial turf park?
Not Penmar, it's not.
I'm sorry, I meant Belmar, the wrong Mar.
They said 10 years.
Okay.
And then I'll be honest, Airport Park is reaching the end of its
Yeah.
useful life. So to replace it will be an issue.
Yeah.
If you were to replace it with grass, you'd be cutting field time in half, probably. And then there's no evidence that we would maintain it to the level that would be needed. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Great, thank you.
Okay, any other public comment before we launch in with Amelia? Take it away. Wait.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, commissioners, vice chair, chair. My name's Amelia Feichner. I'm the city architect with the Public Works Department. I'm happy to be here tonight this evening to discuss city staff's analysis of an approach to the important topic of grass and artificial turf use on city-owned sports fields. I do think that it's important just to note that our analysis was really focused on city-owned sports fields. However, we understand that this is just a part of a much broader conversation, but just wanted to make sure that the policy that we're putting forth today is focused on that, and then we can elaborate. So this evening, I will share the city's proposed policy for grass and artificial turf on city-owned sports fields and how that applies to our current and future field inventory. I'll address the key considerations that factored into the development of the policy and discuss some next steps in our commitment to ensuring we have healthy and safe playing surfaces for our community and the environment. And of course, there will be time for questions at the end. So the Office of Sustainability and Environment, Architecture Services, Public Landscape, and Community Recreation, all of whom have representatives here tonight, came together to analyze the use of artificial turf and natural grass on city-owned sports fields in Santa Monica. After carefully considering environmental and human health impacts, safety, playability, maintenance requirements, and life cycle costs of various options, staff have arrived at this approach. So as you've heard, we are proposing no new artificial turf would be installed at city-owned sports fields. Existing city-owned grass fields will be maintained as grass fields. Existing city-owned artificial turf fields would be maintained and or replaced as artificial turf fields, all while the city explores options to work with experts to develop a request for information for sustainable artificial turf materials that continue to meet the city's need for environmental and human health, safety, playability, maintenance, and costs. This policy is also paralleled by ongoing work by staff to explore more durable natural grass systems and maintenance practices with the goal to phase out artificial turf over time without decreasing field availability and playability, and is our commitment to market transformation within the artificial turf industry to provide safe and recyclable products. Looking at the city's existing field inventory, there are currently 11 diamond sports fields, all natural grass, and 2 rectangular sports fields, both artificial turf, designed for high-intensity use, as you have already heard tonight, at Airport Park and Historic Belmar Park. In general, again, echoing what Stephen was saying, diamond sports fields can be maintained as natural grass without significantly more maintenance because the use is relatively low impact. However, sports played on rectangular fields such as soccer, rugby, and lacrosse have more wear and tear on their fields. Therefore, with only 2 existing rectangular fields, they were designed with artificial turf to withstand the high intensity use without the requirement of periodically closing one or both of them for regular maintenance that would be required if they were grass. There's currently more demand for field use than the city can accommodate. Therefore, families are regularly required to travel for practice and games, and there is resounding public interest in maintaining and increasing the available play time on our fields. As the city expands our parks, such as at Memorial Park and through the airport conversion, all new proposed fields would be grass. At the same time, we know that, for instance, the field at Airport Park will need to be replaced soon. When funding is identified, the replacement of the field would be proposed as artificial turf, consistent with this policy. Again, when developing this policy, we carefully analyzed environmental and human health, safety, playability, maintenance, and life cycle costs. For our grass fields, obviously, they're made up of natural materials. They contribute to lower surface temperatures in our parks, biodiversity, et cetera. They cost less to install and establish, and if they need resodding or replacement, they are less expensive than the replacement of artificial turf alternatives. When well maintained, they provide a relatively forgiving surface for players that fall, tackle, slide, or dive on them. So, relatively safe. And one of the major drivers in looking for grass alternatives historically was in response to drought conditions and concerns over the high water use demand to maintain grass fields. But with the city's surplus of advanced treated recycled water that is approved for use in parks, playgrounds, schoolyards, and even food crops, the water use concern for sites that have access to that recycled water has been mitigated. Now, again, in order to maintain playability, especially for high intense uses, the maintenance and operational costs are generally higher with natural grass. They need to be mowed, fertilized, irrigated, aerated, rested, and sport lines fade over time and need to be repainted. But in our analysis, what we've seen is that the upfront savings we realize with the installation of grass are offset by the investment in the maintenance of the fields to maintain their playability. Therefore, the overall life cycle costs, including installation, maintenance, looking at our current revenue comparisons and replacement of city-owned grass and artificial turf turf fields are at the end of the day relatively the same when you look at that full life cycle. And I want to emphasize that an investment in field maintenance is required to maintain playability on any sports field, no matter what material it is comprised of. And finally, grass fields are prone to closure due to weather, as we're seeing right now. Although we live in sunny Southern California, we still have this rainy season, thank goodness, as we are experiencing right now. And the field closures will result in increased need for makeup games and higher demand on our fields during this season. Artificial turf fields, in contrast, offer a consistent, what they call all-weather playing surface that doesn't need to be closed due to rain, even though I bet nobody was out there playing in this rain this evening. And they don't need the same recovery time following a rain event. Artificial turf fields do not necessarily require irrigation. However, many times watering systems are installed to cool them down before they're used and periodically to clean them. In addition, rubber crumb was removed from the original installation of the artificial turf field at Airport Park, and the city is committed to using alternative infills that do not contain PFAS or microplastics. Options include walnut shells, olive pits, coconut fiber, wood chips, cork, and other certified organic materials. We understand that there are real concerns around the materials used in the blades and underlayment of the artificial turf systems as well. And to protect human health and the environment, our team has proposed that if artificial turf is considered for installation as a replacement of one of our existing artificial turf fields, it must already comply with 2027 regulatory thresholds for chemicals, PFAS, et cetera, verified by batch testing, which would maintain lower levels of those compounds than most household items. Other protective measures would also be used at replacement, like drainage control, shoe cleaning mats, and long-term monitoring. As mentioned previously, artificial turf fields are generally more expensive to install and replace. But after that initial investment, maintenance demands are generally lower than grass fields, although not zero. They still need specialized grooming equipment, infill replacement, and trained staff to keep them safe and playable. Advances in turf technology and footwear have also improved safety and reduced lower extremity injuries as the technology improves. And we also have heard this evening that there's still a real challenge around disposal of the existing products, since most turf currently ends up in landfills at the end of its useful life. We are seeing new recyclable turf products entering the market, where they're comprised of one material all the way through. It's an encouraging shift in the industry, and one that the city would require for any material installed. So again, we've listened closely to our community through public comments on this policy, on our park expansion projects such as Memorial Park that was presented by Linda tonight, and public comment on the Park and Recreation Vision Plan Roadshow that was recently completed by our senior park planner, Tony Lopez. The message we received is clear. The needs of our residents are dynamic. They prefer natural grass fields, and they expect well-maintained playable surfaces that are not closed for long periods of time for maintenance and or weather now or in the future. That's why our policy is structured this way. All new city-owned fields would be grass. High-intensity use artificial turf will remain artificial turf with strong safeguards in place. And we'll continue exploring whether over time artificial turf can be phased out completely on city-owned fields, while we commit to working with our professional community to demand transformation of the synthetic turf industry. It's staff's recommendation tonight that the commission support this approach that completes the presentation. And I really thank you for your time and attention, and we are here to answer questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Amelia.
Sure.
Questions? Ashley?
Has there been an analysis done on the cost of, right, for the basically this plan is saying in the immediate future, we're really just talking about the airport fields.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yes.
really what this is kind of about.
Yeah.
Has anybody done a cost analysis of what the 5-year cost would be or 10-year cost would be of maintaining a real grass field versus the installation and lower maintenance over time, and a breakdown of that? Because it seems that money and convenience and playability are being weighed against a whole host of environmental and public health concerns that are serious. And I keep hearing playability, but if somebody has cancer, I highly doubt they're going to be playing on that soccer field. So it's like we're kind of doing this trade-off, and so I'm trying to understand the actual cost breakdown of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. So our internal, what I'll call our internal task force, met and did a deep dive analysis into real fields that we have within the city, and real cost analysis of what it costs to install them and maintain them. Again, we have to factor in that currently high-intensity fields are artificial turf, low-intensity fields are natural grass. So when we looked at it, there are also, just know that there were some factors that we really debated about the cost to maintain that level of playability with the limited resources that we have right now. As I said, I mean, I will say at the end of the day, when you look at the full life cycle, I would say that they're basically the same, except the cost is like inverted, right? Initial installation is much higher with artificial turf, but then the maintenance costs decrease and are maintained at a low level for a long time for the life of the field. Let's call that somewhere between 10 to 20 years. Let's call it 10. And then you replace it, so then you incur that high cost again. Natural grass is opposite, right? Like it's not as expensive to build and maintain, but then the overall maintenance is increased. But as you said, there's cost. So let's say that we could even take that off the table, because overall, over the whole life cycle of the systems, they basically end up zeroing out. So then really what I think our task force was charged with or challenged with is we are hearing from the community that they are very concerned, and we believe that there are real concerns that if we did all natural grass with the limited number of fields that we have right now, that playability would decrease, and there would be times that our high intensity use fields were offline, and they would have to continue to travel elsewhere where they are playing on some natural grass, some artificial turf fields. So those are, I would say that that's probably the biggest catalyst there, while we're really pushing to expand our inventory so that we can support the transition from artificial turf to natural grass. But there's real concern that if we went to natural grass, given the resources we have right now, we would decrease playable time.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Before artificial turf was created,
yeah.
What did we do when it came to playability in sports? Or what do people do in the Midwest when it's wintertime? Or like what? So, because I'm just trying to understand, like this is a newer product that's been made. Mm-hmm. What did we used to do 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago? What did people do?
Yeah. I mean, I think you've heard from others tonight, right? Depending on where you live, you play on fields that may not be as well maintained, that also, have their own risks of twisted ankles, et cetera, et cetera. However, it is a very different scale of, I would say it's a very different scale of health impact, though. But, right, or they did something else for that season, right? There's a reason there's not like winter soccer, or it's indoor, right? So, but yeah, they played on.
Yeah, I
not
know
as
from
maintained
when I
fields.
was working at the city years ago, I remember several of the fields at Clover Park would be taken out.
Yeah.
So they just wouldn't have the field. So they would, whatever that programming would go outside of the city, or it would go away for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, and thank you to everyone who made comments tonight. I don't really have a question, but I feel like I need to say this. Like, when we're talking about high-intensity exercise, and we're also talking about putting that on top of a volatile, toxic product, that seems antithetical to me, especially with growing bodies. When we're talking about children who are growing, they're breathing more, they're inhaling more, and they're basically more vulnerable to toxins than adults are. And so while I hear all the arguments about playability, I feel like we're just pushing aside this massive thing that we should not ignore. Particularly when it comes to the children. I would rather not have them play an organized sport than, and I want to make sure I say this correctly, than have them, in Cedars for, 10 years from now. And so, or worse, right? So I really struggle with that. And so I'm sitting here going, okay, is there like a volatiles trap that we could filter the air, or how do we do the runoff part, right? We can't let it infiltrate the groundwater. Absolutely. Oh, but we do. And now everybody's poisoned and the wildlife is poisoned. So I find it really troubling. And the argument of playability doesn't really fly for me. Because of these future issues that we're definitely going to see. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that comment.
David?
Along the lines of what Alex said, do you know, has the city studied either the contents of the runoff from the turf fields or the outgassing from the fields when it's a hot day?
I do not believe that we have. No.
And have you guys done a review of the literature on that?
We have.
And what's your conclusion?
I would say that it is concerning that there is runoff from our artificial turf fields.
You have kids?
I do.
Are you concerned about having your kids play in these fields?
I am.
Also, I was thinking about many years ago. I look back and I go, oh my God. I went to one of the SMC 4th of July celebrations, and I'd never been there before. So I was like, okay, I have this young 4-year-old, I'm going to take him. And we sat down in this pile of rubber rubble with turf because nobody has the money to replace it in enough time. So it starts to decompose and fall apart, and it's just, so what we're doing basically is maximizing the surface area from which it can volatilize, and then we're putting our children on top of it. I think, and it was hot, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. But what, am I going to be the worst mom on the planet if I'm like, yeah, forget it, we're going to leave, right? So we stayed, but it haunts me, right? Like, why would anybody support sitting on this, in this garbage? It's garbage. And I worry that the airport park is like that too. And the city has no resources and so the toxins just are really troublesome.
Thank you.
Great. Did you have a... Huh? No, you don't? I actually I'm going to ask some questions now, and before we wrap up, but I think we're kind of moving to the right place here. The question I had was, or actually a couple of them. Do we know, you mentioned it briefly, but do we know like kind of what the current state of affairs are as, that gets at your last bullet point there with a more sustainable artificial turf development and that kind of thing? I mean, is that actually happening somewhere? Are you seeing any of that stuff, or is that still just like kind of hopeful?
You know, I see people demanding market transformation. I believe we are just at the beginning of peeling back the transparency of the systems and their makeup. We equate this to things like the carpet industry, which, you know, used to be very, very large carpets rolled out that would be rolled up and taken and thrown into a landfill. I think that it's really early on. But I think that even as the city of Santa Monica, as we move to phase out artificial turf, there are still going to be people throughout the world, in our region, maybe even in our city, depending on actions, that are still using this. So we still want to dedicate ourselves to pushing that needle and trying to be a leader and say, we're demanding market transformation. So if folks are using these products, we are improving them and not letting them continue to.
So, and I just wanted to amplify Amelia's observation that the fourth bullet point very clearly talks about two things. The first is what Amelia was just responding to, which is really we have seen in our own community a remarkable commitment to artificial turf that is inconsistent with a lot of the information that has been shared tonight. In situations like that, we feel like the city has the opportunity to really drive that industry in this middle phase to more sustainable options. But I want to point out the second part of this, which is we very much see our role as having the opportunity to increase the performance and move the needle on industry developments for natural fields that can increase playability independent of weather and with less maintenance opportunity. So I think it's really important to understand that that fourth bullet point talks about two things. So Amelia talked about the first piece, which is for organizations and, you know, in the scenario where people remain committed to artificial turf, not saying in the city, I'm just saying broadly, pushing forward design competitions and outcomes that reduce the toxicity, increase the recyclability, et cetera. And then also really working diligently with natural grass sports fields so that we can have natural grass sports fields that have high playability and high maintenance.
Right.
So,
what do we know anything about the state of those?
I'm sorry, that is like a pipe tree. That's not public policy.
okay.
Do we know anything about, I mean, is there any work in that part of
The natural grass?
Yeah, in natural grass playability world? Are people developing better alternatives?
Yeah, so a number of us were just at Green Build, which is the International Green Building Expo, and I'll share my observations, then you can share yours. And a number of us went to workshops where there are natural grass fields that are being developed that have a specific, design and plant palette that does allow for professional level athletics. And so we would love to see that level of natural grass here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we, as Shannon said, I'll just elaborate a little bit, right? Connecting with the folks that are really looking at this at a high level, it's looking at those blends of different grasses so that, you know, as one matures in one season and then starts to decline, you get another one that comes in. So there's great technology around that. It's, you know, you need to kind of test it and tweak it for your microclimate. But we're very excited to be engaging in those conversations and finding a pilot project, which we are committed to test that out in the near future.
Right. Last question that I have is about our existing fields. And I mean, it's clear that the current policy is we're not going to put in any new fields, but Airport Park's wearing out. You're going to have to go out for an RFP. You talked about some kind of safeguards, but as we know, there's a lot of issues with runoff from the fields. And I was very happy to hear that all the crumb rubber was taken out and replaced with other stuff, which is great. But, you know, I walk by the school district fields on Ocean Park every day, and, you know, they put in like these little plastic kind of screens to filter the water out so it would run off, but they, of course, somebody went down and kicked them all and they're all broken and all that stuff just runs out into the street. So are there any safeguards currently on our existing fields, and is there any plan, if not, to significantly change those if you're planning to update these, our existing fields, to make sure that we don't have runoff and we absolutely minimize any kind of impacts from those fields?
Yes, thank you for the question. So one, yes, our current fields do have some mitigation measures. I will say historic Belmar Park, being the newer one, has a much better capture system, right? Like technology is advanced, where we know that at Airport Park, right, people walk off that field with blades of grass on them, right, in their shoes and everything, similar to the example that was discussed earlier. So yes, actually in our work on Memorial Park, right, there was originally proposed artificial turf fields in the master plan. One of the considerations was to really look at natural grass. While we did that, we did a deep dive into if we were directed to maintain those as artificial turf fields, what mitigation measures we would put in place. So we use that to do a deep dive that then we will carry forward. Thank goodness it's going natural grass, but you know, would take forward for Airport Park replacement if that remains artificial turf. That there would be very specific filtration systems, very specific testing on material. As I said, you know, like the shoe walk-off mats. So you capture that as folks, if there is anything that it captures it as they, before they leave the field. And there are various other ones. And I can follow up and share some of that information that we would implement on any artificial turf field if it were installed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you turn on your mic, or is it on?
I had a follow-up question for Shannon and the presenter, because you mentioned that you had attended the Green Building and you were informed about the studies and the projects to manufacture isn't the correct word, but to come up with a grass playing field that is more playable. And so I was going to ask the question about pilot testing, and you mentioned that, you know, so how far away are the pilot tests, and then do we have to participate in a lottery? How do you volunteer the city to be the beta tester for these grass fields? And if you think about, some of their fields are laid out, like the Airport Park has got 3 laid out right next to each other. So if you had, you know, grass combination A versus B versus C, they would all be subjected to exactly the same conditions. So you've removed a lot of variability, and then you would be able to, or the investigators would be able to answer those questions and be able to come up with a good mix of grasses that would be able to withstand this climate and the playability issue.
Do you want me to start and then? Sure. Again, within the task force, we discussed options for potential pilots to really test out different grass mixtures, species, et cetera. We do not have funding available right now, but we are working on it. And we've proposed that a marine park could be a good candidate. It has diamond sports fields there, but it is also used for soccer camps, for all sorts of camps on that field. It also mitigates the concern that, that we would, again, really start to pilot on one of our 2 rectangular sports fields, right? Just because they're so sensitive and we only have 2 of them. But we've identified that as an opportunity site, and we're working right now to kind of garner interest and support around that, and then would put in an application for funding, essentially, with our capital improvement program.
So, Susan, I think what I'm hearing you ask is, in addition to the bullet points, the first 3 bullet points, I think what I'm hearing you ask is there a scenario where in bullet point 4 that when either of our artificial turf, either or both of our artificial turf fields came up for replacement, an alternative scenario might be to release an RFP where there was included in that was a cost estimate for a durable natural alternative?
I have difficulty with bullet point. Oops, sorry. I have difficulty with bullet point 3. So Airport Park is reaching the end of its lifespan. So instead of replacing it with artificial turf, since there are these studies, why don't we use that? I mean, that it's, to me, the perfect opportunity to test these different grass fields to answer playability questions. And I don't know the cost of that. I don't know if, money's tight all over because of NSF funding issues. But if there was, an investigator that is working, well, maybe there's companies that are trying to develop.
There are.
Yeah.
The grass strains, and they're really looking for opportunities like this would present to the city.
Yeah.
And the city could volunteer that.
So I was actually going to the same exact place, which is, we're sitting right across the street from the world's first living building government facility. We've done this before in Santa Monica, and based on pretty much what I'm hearing from all the members of our commission tonight is that we're not comfortable with bullet number 3 and just replacing artificial turf with artificial turf. I would make a motion or propose a motion that adopts the staff recommendation for bullet number 1, that no new artificial sports fields will be installed in the city. For bullet number 2, existing grass fields will be maintained as grass fields. And for bullet number 3, when existing artificial turf fields reach the end of their useful life, we go out to bid to replace them with durable, natural, alternative materials that meet the city's needs. So basically, we do what we've always done in Santa Monica, which is not just talk about pushing the envelope, but actually push the envelope. And it's going to be an upfront cost, but let's do that. So I would make a recommended motion that we take out bullet number 3 and replace it with when the existing artificial turf fields reach the end of their life, that we recommend the city replace them with durable, natural, alternative grass fields and commit to that moving forward for all of our sports fields.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Is there? Okay. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to just say one thing about it. I mean, I do have, having grown up playing sports, I do have sympathy for what people associated, for example, with rec and parks and the various soccer leagues have to say. But at the end of the day, we're not rec and parks. We're the Sustainability Commission, and to be blunt about it, I don't think that the field usage issue is our problem. I think our problem is what's the safest and healthiest for the community and for the environment. And on that score, I don't have any doubt, based on what we've heard tonight, that we should get rid of the artificial turf as quickly as is practicable.
Great. Thank you. So we'll go to a vote. So all in favor of that motion that I just laid out?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, Amelia.
Thank you all.
And thank you all for your great public input.
So I just have a quick question. So will this motion we just passed, is this going to be reworded before it sees council about what our recommendation is, or how will that be reflected in this plan or this proposal?
Yeah, so right now, we've presented this in a few spaces. The task force will reconvene, review the public comment. The plan is to send an information item to City Council outlining the proposal and input we've received. I will say, once we meet as a task force, right, I'm not unilaterally deciding if we're changing or not, right? So the task force will reconvene. And I think obviously we'd either come back and present it or figure out a way with the chairs of how we communicate that information back.
I just want to make sure that what we all feel gets passed along, because I know that all of us have received dozens and dozens and dozens of letters from the community about the not supporting artificial turf. And as Ben Kay pointed out to me, there is no such thing as sustainable artificial turf. That's not a real thing. And I see that written in bullet point 4. And I know chromium 6 is not something to mess with. It's something that, is as serious as it gets. And so I just want to make sure that whatever we're passing, our message and our perspective is definitely passed along. Okay. Thank you so much for your honesty and being candid with answering our questions.
We will provide consistent updates to you on the task force's, the next steps from the task force. And then if it seems like you need to write a letter or show up at council, we will make sure that you know and that the members of the public know. But at this point, we don't anticipate that as a necessary outcome, but we will keep you posted. The broader you, the broad you and the specific you.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Amelia. Okay, so we're on to future agenda planning. Clove, would you like to walk us through that?
Do you want me to go ahead or
Yeah.
wait a second?
Oh, I think we can go ahead.
I just wanted to thank all the city staff that were here tonight. Thank you so much for all coming to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, great. So the question at hand is the December meeting. I just wanted to get a feel from the commission whether or not that meeting is going to take place, or if we're going to cancel the meeting as we have done traditionally and resume back in January.
Well, can I ask you one question?
Yes, of course.
Do we have any items that are pressing that we need to talk about in
Not
December?
Presently, no.
I had one suggestion, but
Can we have quiet, please? If you guys would like to talk, can you move outside? Thank you so much.
oh, are you waiting for me?
Yeah.
So I heard from Isabel Duvivier from Verdant Venice, and she would like to do a presentation about runoff from Sunset Park. Do you know about this? Okay.
I think you forwarded it to me.
Okay. And I sent her these 3 dates, and she chose December 15th, of course. So if we are going to meet, I'd love to add that to the agenda, if it's okay with it. That would be lovely.
Yeah,
Whoever makes a
I mean, that's
decision.
fine with me. And I mean, from my own personal, I'm around and available on the
Me too.
15th.
Me too.
But
I'm historically, this task force had taken December and August off, but given people are here, we will work to populate a meaningful agenda for December. December, we'll start with Isabel, and then if we feel like we can pull together a meaningful agenda, we would love to have this meeting as well.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. Thank you
Great.
so much.
And then it looks like we've just noted that the meetings in January and February, if you all recall, those are on not the third Mondays, but the fourth Mondays because
Right.
of
I
holidays.
just
on
wanted
the
to
third
front load
Mondays.
that so you all know that in advance. And at the present time, we don't have anything on the agenda for those, but
Okay.
I'm working on that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Chloe, sorry. I sent you that information on the cement plant and if we could possibly, if we are looking for something, if we could consider that as a topic. Thank you.
That's a recommendation well aligned with the city's realignment plan. So we'll take a look at scheduling that for January or February as well.
Great.
Are there any other suggestions or things that the commission would like to hear that you've heard from the community that you'd like to bring forward? Yes, David.
I had a couple of suggestions about, if we're going to do this now, about the next year's work plan.
Oh, we're not there yet. We're still talking about commission meetings and things that you guys would like us to bring forward.
There is one more thing. Maybe 6 months ago, the report about the decline in biodiversity overall on the planet. I thought maybe we could discuss making a statement about supporting increasing biodiversity within the city in the islands. I know that the landscaping and all these, what we just heard from, they've been talking about doing that, but I just wonder if there should be a formal statement from the commission.
Absolutely, we'd be happy to bring that. Along that same vein, I would just offer an invitation as we start to look at updating the Sustainable City Plan. We are looking at some of these nationally recognized outcome metrics like walk scores, like biodiversity ratings, et cetera. So if you come across well-respected outcome metrics in your professional space, please feel free to bring them to us or just send us an email. We'd be happy to bring in a presentation so that we're building the collective knowledge as we start to plan for the update of the plan.
So are we going to get an update on the dye at the end of the pier?
Yes, but they're still analyzing those results, and as soon as they have a timeline for that, we'll bring it to you. But you're the first commission that she will report to.
Perfect.
But on the day, there wasn't much pink to see.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our administrative items. Do you want to walk us through them?
Shannon is going to present the work plan.
Okay.
Okay. I don't really need to do. It doesn't like like me. Wants us all to go home. Okay, so you have the work plan, and so I don't feel the need to.
David, if you turn off your mic, it might be better. Thank you.
I don't think I need to read the piece by piece for you. This is an annual exercise that we go through. It is a requirement of all boards, commissions, and task forces. We look at our what we've worked on this past fiscal year. We give just a very brief summary. Do you remember back in the day we used to write a full report, and then we did those serious videos, and then we did the really fun videos, and then we did nothing, and now we're at this, which is a very quick, essentially bullet point summary of our area, the areas that came before you, and the areas that you would like us to focus on bringing forward in the next fiscal year. Yes, it is October, and we are talking to you about the 25-26 fiscal year because that's how life happens sometimes. The good news is it's not actually late. This is just the process in the city this year. So what did we do last year? We talked to you, we broke it down into a couple of key areas. They are your primary areas: environmental and public health, resource conservation, transportation, open space and land use, and then sustainable local economy and community outreach. We are focusing, this year we are starting just to bring together a subset of projects that you'll receive updates on, and then we will prioritize those into goal areas. So the areas that we heard from you in previous meetings and that we pulled from the places that we know are happening here in the city are zero waste. We'll bring you a zero waste strategic plan update. In that zero waste vein, we will also bring you SB 1383 implementation update. The reason we're bringing you the zero waste strategic plan update in this fiscal year as opposed to the last is because the city had paused their development of that plan to be reflective of some statewide changes, and it's important to us that you have the opportunity to weigh in. Community engagement and green business program, as the city's focus on economic development and reinvestment, we're going to really look at economic development around sustainable practices and also putting some more energy into revitalizing some of our historical ordinances that are targeted at the business community. We are working on our Sustainable City Plan progress report and an update to the Sustainable City Plan. This year we'll celebrate the 50th anniversary of our community gardens, so we'll bring you some work, some updates there, and we will also bring you updates on the 2 new gardens that we have in the works. One of those proposals is very consistent with the project that Ashley was talking about, so I think that one will come quickly. We'll be talking to you about building performance standards, REACH code, power ready programs. Those are all under our carbon neutrality umbrella. And then under resiliency, we'll be looking at the beach dune restoration project. We'll be talking about the airport in an ongoing way. And then we will talk to you as well about water infrastructure as well as water conservation, and then citywide mobility and some infrastructure changes. So ultimately, these things fall under 4 primary categories. We'll bring you topics around water self-sufficiency. We'll bring you topics around zero waste. We'll bring you topics around carbon neutrality, and then we'll bring you topics around community engagement and resiliency. So that's the plan. Are there any, what did we leave out?
Well, I'm not sure anything. The 2 things that I have in mind to add, one is the Big Blue Bus electrification, which could be under citywide mobility. And the other is artificial turf for reasons you heard tonight.
Right. Yes. Great. I think we have Big Blue Bus electrification is on our short list too. I think you'll be quite pleased with the work that they're doing. Yeah, didn't they just come?
No, they came.
He just came. Oh, keep it updated. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes. And then I think the other thing, just obviously, that we will keep you up to speed on is Olympic planning in a multifaceted way. And then under that community engagement, resiliency and community engagement, I did also want to let you know that we are working on a sustainable events master plan, and we'll be bringing that to you as well.
To kind of piggyback off of what Alex brought up about biodiversity, I would love to see there be a plan and development to focus on biodiversity. I know there's a lot of resources out there with organizations that help support, bring like different plants in, or for, support pollinators and things of like that also involve a lot of community engagement and education with young kids. And I would love to see we talk a lot about biodiversity as a kind of like just a little blip on some of these plans, but we never actually follow through with any implementation of anything that I'm aware of so far in any park or anything that actually supports, increased biodiversity. So some kind of focus where there's action and not just something that's like a bullet point on a plan.
Agree.
I think we need more tigers and cheetahs and things in the city. I haven't seen any.
I really appreciate that feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do second
yeah.
David's piece about artificial turf. I think I'd love to see that on the list as
Yep.
an ongoing, where are we with these kinds of things? Guessing we're probably going to start talking about moving Airport Park and replacing that, so.
Great. Yes?
Judy?
I have to leave, and okay, I have to leave. And I noticed that the next item has you combining the EV task force, and I think that's fine. I'd still like to be on the commission. I don't know how that works, but it would be fine to combine that. I'm the chair of the EV task force, so
Okay,
that's all.
great.
I can move to that item if there are no other additions. Dean, go Ben.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah.
I may also do that, not for the Clean Beaches, the next item, but for this item, I just wanted to ask about, are you guys being updated on enforcement, like code enforcement of existing ordinances? Because I see a lot of violations in our city, say with respect to plastic bowls being given out at Panda, a whole host of things. So if that's under your purview, I'm not sure if that's part of it.
Yep. We are looking forward to bringing that here and for your comment.
I agree that would be a fantastic thing. Thank you, Ben, for bringing that up. Yeah.
Can I move to the next
Yeah,
topic
move
for
on
you?
to the next item.
Okay, so or maybe as Judy's leaving, the next item I have to present is combining Clean Beaches and EV subcommittee with the commission. So let me explain what's happening. The city is going through an exercise of looking at all their boards, commissions, task forces, and the amount of staff time and resources that is going into all of them. There have been recommendations that a number of them sunset, and there have been recommendations that a number of them are combined. We made a slightly different recommendation for this, what's happening here. So originally the proposal was for Sustainability Commission, Urban Forest Task Force, EV Subcommittee, and Measure V to combine. We declined. The Urban Forest Task Force, we're making the recommendation that the Urban Forest Task Force actually becomes a commission because there's ongoing need to maintain the health, diversity in terms of species and age of the urban forest, and we think that's really important and distinct, complementary but distinct. And then when it came to Measure V, the EV Subcommittee, and the Sustainability Commission, instead of combining, there's so much expertise between these three committees. Instead of combining into one, our recommendation was more akin to what we did with the Arts Commission, where we hosted a joint meeting. So what we are proposing is that the Sustainability Commission is the umbrella commission. You will meet on your regular schedule and with your existing commissioners. The Measure V subcommittee meets 4 times a year, right? Meets 4 times a year. Once a quarter, we will convene a joint meeting of the Sustainability Commission and the Measure V subcommittee. So you will be more informed on the work that they are doing, and they will be more informed on the work that you are doing. When we jointly convene, the Sustainability Commission will do their work of that evening, and then the Measure V committee will do their work of that evening, but it will all happen within this 3-hour meeting. And then, so meeting 1 each quarter will be just the Sustainability Commission. The second monthly meeting of the quarter will be Sustainability Commission plus Measure V. The third meeting each quarter will be the Sustainability Commission jointly convening with the EV subcommittee. And that way we are increasing communication between the 3 groups, but maintaining the subject area expertise of these leading sustainability thinkers in the community. We think it keeps each group's emphasis intact, but builds a stronger network between the 3 groups. That's our proposal.
I'm perfectly happy with that. My one concern is, are we going to be able to set up agendas where we're going to be able to get through all of that stuff in 3 hours?
Yes. We'll work really closely to make sure that happens.
Yeah, as long as we can fit it in and they don't become meetings till midnight.
No, the meetings, we committed that the meetings would stay 7 to 10.
Okay.
Like that. The meetings are not getting longer. You have to be really timely about what comes to both.
Yeah.
And as I used to chair the commission and be under when Ben was chair, I think you guys will actually find it interesting and informative and something you'd want to hear from at least the Clean Oceans and Beaches.
Do you need us to vote on this?
Oh,
Okay, cool.
it's
No,
done.
and I just want to also say that this isn't going to happen until it goes to council in January. So this is not an immediate thing. We just wanted to be proactive about what we wanted to have happen.
We didn't want you to hear about it as council was hearing about it. So if you have concerns with it, or if there are things that you think would be helpful, obviously agenda management, time management, and making sure that our topics align. But short of that, we just wanted to make you aware.
Fantastic.
Hit the button.
Go ahead.
I was kind of hoping, after seeing how wonderful the realm of topics you guys address, that we could all just increase the size of one committee and then all just start coming to be one sustainable commission. Is that a possibility? Is there been any committees that have increased in size from, say, 5 members to 15 or 10? Is this 7?
You are narrating one of my initial proposals. I think that we will functionally get to something that operates in that way, but that 7 seems to be the max that they are aiming for boards, commissions, and task forces for now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other final words on that before we adjourn? No? Okay, we're adjourned at 10 to 10, 12 to 10. Well done. Good meeting tonight. It's 9:48.